Hi everyone, I'm Martin. In this series of video, we're going to talk about Metaphysics 4th edition by Peter van Inwagen. This book is actually my favorite introductory text to metaphysics. So in this video, we're going to start with Chapter 1, Introduction. So, what exactly is metaphysics? Well, there are two explanations for the origins of the word metaphysics. The first one is from Greek, where it simply means beyond the study of nature, where in this definition it means that metaphysics investigate issues transcending those investigated by physics. The another explanation is that it literally means the book after physics. So Aristotle wrote a book about nature called Physics and another called First Philosophy, which devoted to various topics that we call metaphysics today. And after his death, his student rearranged his work and the latter came immediately after physics. So under these definitions, metaphysics simply means the book after physics. So what is metaphysics? Well, the nature of metaphysics is probably best explained by examples, but nonetheless, the author provide a simple definition. So, metaphysics is the study of ultimate reality. It attempts to get behind appearances and to tell the ultimate truth about things. But what is reality? And what does ultimate reality even means? Well, we all know that appearance can be deceptive. One famous example is that Earth was thought to be at the center of the universe and everything just revolved around us. But despite the fact that it appears that way, stationary, but it is really rotating. So in metaphysics, we cares about those reality under the appearance. And more importantly, is the ultimate reality. Because what we find behind appearance is often another appearance that hides a deeper reality. For example, in the 1920s to 1930s, science writers claimed that solid objects were in reality mostly empty space. But no sooner had people begun to digest the idea that solid objects contain a lot of empty space than it was discovered that those empty space is actually very densely populated. So it leads us to a question: could it be that the reality behind every appearance is itself only a further appearance? So that's what we care about in metaphysics. We want to know what exactly is the ultimate reality. As we have mentioned, the nature of metaphysics is probably best explained by examples. So let's look at three questions that are mainly asked in metaphysics about the world. The first is, what is the world like? In other words, what are the most general features of the world and what sorts of things does it contain? And secondly, why does the world exist? More specifically, why does it have the features and things that we found in the answer for the previous question? And lastly, what is our place in the world? So, if we follow these three questions, we can define metaphysics as the study that proposes answer to these three questions and attempts to choose among the competing sets of answers to them. So, what could possibly be the answer for these three questions? Well, if you live in Middle Ages, then your answer could probably look like this. The world is consists of God and all that He has made. And why does it exist? Because God just has to exist, just as 2 and 2 must equal 4. And everything else exists just because God caused them to exist and He keeps them in existence at every moment. And what is our place in the world? Well, human beings are created to serve Him forever. On the other hand, if you live in 19th century, your answer could be like, the world is consists of matter in motion. Nothing else exists beside matter that operates according to physical law. And why does it exist? Well, it actually Meaningless because matter can neither be created nor destroyed, so the question why it exists is meaningless because there is no beginning. And our place in the world is just a temporary part of the world because we are just a complex configurations of matter. These two sets of answers seems to be different, but actually there are some common features between both. The first one is that both assume that individual things are real, but on the other hand, in some Eastern religions, there are no separate objects in reality. And secondly, both answers assumes the reality of time, but some philosophers would argue that the passage of time and the direction of time are just mere appearance. Thirdly, both answers assumes the reality of material world, where some philosophers also argue that there are nothing exists outside of our mind. And most importantly, both answers presupposes the three questions can be answered. And in fact, some philosophers would argue that there are just strings of words that have the superficial appearance of questions and actually can't be answered. Now that we have seen some questions that are being asked in metaphysics, you might be wondering what's the difference of metaphysics with some other similar domains. For example, physical science and theology. Well, physical science is the study of basic building blocks of the physical universe and the laws by which they interact. And theology is the study of truths God has supposedly revealed. Both actually have relevant and overlapping areas with metaphysics, and they do have implications to metaphysics as well. For example, in physical science, if we found that physical universe had a beginning of time, that would mean that all metaphysics speculations that presuppose an infinite past are incorrect. But both domains actually are different from metaphysics in terms of methods and answers that they provide to the questions. For example, physical science can't answer why does the world exist because it simply study the mechanism of how the world works. It doesn't answer why at all. And it doesn't even answer is there more to the world than the physical universe because it can only observe and study what are actually appear in the physical universe. And theology, on the other hand, use a different method to study the same questions that are being asked in metaphysics. Metaphysics is a part of a more general field of philosophy. There are some more branches in philosophy, for example, ethics. It inquires into the nature of good and bad, but it has some implications with metaphysics as well. For example, if we claim that Hitler was an evil man, what do we mean by being evil? Does it mean having a feature? So does it mean that the world can contain non-physical features, which is being evil? Another area is epistemology, which is the theory of knowledge, and logic, the nature of valid reasoning, aesthetics, the nature of works of art, and many, many more philosophy of, such as philosophy of mind, politics, language, law, etc. The most important thing is that all parts of philosophy raises metaphysical questions as well. There is one defining characteristics of philosophy, which you will start to notice, that there is no information and no established facts to be learned in philosophy, unlike any other subjects that we study. That's because philosophy has not been able to produce any uncontroversial results. In fact, if some branch of philosophy start to have real information, then it would cease to be regarded as a branch of philosophy and regarded as science. For example, physics used to be thought as natural philosophy. So why is this? Why is there no such thing as philosophical information? The first argument is that philosophical questions are actually defective questions. According to logical positivism, Philosophical questions are really just sequence of words that had the superficial appearance of statements and questions. For example, how high is up? It has the grammatical form, but it is not a legitimate question. But logical positivism is thought to be just like more of philosophy. It exhibits the very symptoms that they are supposed to explain. They proposed claims, but then it was argued and no consensus. Again, this has not been able to produce any uncontroversial results. The second argument is that it is the nature of human mind that we can't produce a answer for philosophy. According to Kant, human beings are not constructed the right way to be able to find out the answers to these questions. For example, if my mind were a blank, no internal or mental representations of external objects, then I can't really claim that here is X, here is a bottle, here is a cup in front of me. Similarly, we just don't have the internal configuration to understand philosophical questions. So, do you think this is a legitimate answer? Well, again, there is no uncontroversial results here. But the key takeaway here is that you are feel free to disagree with anything that acknowledged experts to say. The key point is to know what it's like to work out and defend a metaphysical position. That's the most important key. Alright, that's all from Chapter 1 Introduction. I hope to see you in next video.